Consumer Reports recently published this article on October 14th. It's about how there's high levels of lead in protein shakes and powders. They tested 23 products and found that 2/3 of them have more lead than their experts say is safe to have in one day. Now, they've thrown around some really scary numbers. 1,200% of CR's level of concern for lead, 1,600% of your daily limit for lead. It's terrifying. Am I having 1,000% of my maximum daily lead limit just by eating a protein powder? That would be really bad, if it were true. Now's a good second to talk about what CR is. Consumer Reports is a consumer-first people's advocacy nonprofit. They do testing for a bunch of products to see if they hold up to marketing claims. They do food safety tests and so on. But it's very important to note that CR is a consumer rights group, not a scientific one. And while they do test food safety, they don't hold up to the same standards as scientific institutions do. Nonetheless, I don't want to put them specifically down. They're an incredibly important institution, especially in the United States. I don't want to undermine this. The FDA gets less and less power every year at this point, and it's incredible that groups like CR exist and they do a very important job. Unfortunately, in this case, I just think that they haven't done that job very well. You see, throughout the article and the study, CR is taking a very specific metric as their level of concern for lead, 0.5 micrograms per day. Where do they get that metric from? Well, we can find out. In the article, CR links to a methodology paper. It's 4 pages long. There's about a page and a half of nothing about the actual method of testing, and there's 2 pages of results. If you weren't sure if this was a scientific study by now, this ought to clue you in. Within this page and a half of their method, we can in fact find this 0.5 micrograms per day metric that they're raving about. This chart here explains how they're getting their metrics for what they consider a bad amount of heavy metals every day. Now, the general consensus is that any amount of lead is bad, but in practicality, we live on the crust of a planet that has lead in it. So you'll intake some degree of lead, regardless through dust or air or eating plants that leach lead from the soil. That's most plants, by the way. But don't worry, every scientific institution knows this and have metrics stating that the amount of lead you intake through this stuff is not nearly bad enough to actually affect you. Well, gosh golly, is the 0.5 micrograms per day metric from a scientific institution? It actually is. It's from the OEHHA's MADL. For those of you who have not instantly recognized these incredibly renowned acronyms, it's the California Office of Environmental Health Hazards Assessment's maximum allowable dose level. I suppose they didn't like acronyms that got too long and they dropped the C. Maybe that's why there's no F in MADL. Because MADL, you see, is specifically in relation to fertility. In fact, if you go to the OEHHA's website, look up lead, and scroll down, you'll see that just above the MADL benchmark, there's a text that says reproductive toxicity, which, for practicality's sake, means we tested a good chunk more than this amount in pregnant rats and it had adverse effects. So unless you are a pregnant, this does not apply to you. Now, don't get me wrong, this is still something that should be disclosed by the companies. Protein supplement companies do get away with a lot less regulation than they should, and this should absolutely put them under better scrutiny. But that doesn't mean that the reporting company gets a free pass for using a terrible metric that they don't explain at all in the articles. Okay, but Gerald, you say. What other metric could they have even used? The benchmark for pregnant women can't be that much more than the benchmark for a regular Joe Schmo, can it? Thank you, astute viewer, for asking that question in your minds. You see, there is in fact another metric that they could have used. In fact, they wouldn't have even had to go to another institute. It's on the OEHHA website. Hell, it's on the same page as the MADL, in fact. It's only one line above the MADL. If you scroll down on the page for lead in the OEHHA website, you'll see 2 metrics, one of which is the MADL in reference to reproductive toxicity. Right above that, you'll see a second metric, NSRL, no significant risk level. Well, sure, maybe they should have used this, but it can't be that much more than the MADL, right? Oh yeah, you're right, it's only 30 times more than the MADL. Now look, I don't mind that CR did this study. I have no ball in the protein supplement game. I like my lentils and beans and tofu. I don't really use the protein products. But I do mind when reporters or informers or institutions misinform their audience. The article does not portray this amount of lead as specifically bad only for pregnancy or child health. It certainly mentions that it is bad for children and pregnant women, but no one reading this article is going to go, I'm not pregnant, this is way less applicable to me. The article is not even remotely structured around that. No, what the article is saying is, oh gosh golly, look at these products. They've got 1 trillion% of your daily maximum lead intake. Well, these are dangerous, folks. When in fact, they don't have remotely 1,000% of your daily maximum limit, because the daily maximum limit is based on pregnant women. Unless you're pregnant, then don't use protein powder. I did a small but mildly annoying amount of research for this. We don't actually have to do that to figure out there's something wrong with this study. There's 2 things that should catch your eye. 1, they mentioned this study is not an indication in any way of a product's liability for Prop 65. The exact statement is, our results are meant to provide guidance on which products have comparatively higher levels of lead, not to identify the point at which lead exposure will have measurable harmful effects, or to assess compliance with California law. How odd. But if you look at the chart of their results, there's something that stands out that explains this in really simple terms. None of these are standardized. This one has 300 grams per serving. This one has 30. And oh gosh, the one with 300 grams per serving has more lead? No fucking shit, it does. There's 10 times more of it. My greatest issue with this article is that it brings up some genuinely concerning issues. The Huel Black Edition chocolate, for example, having 6 micrograms of lead per 90 grams of servings is a genuinely concerning amount. In large part because the Huel website recommends having 4 servings of this a day if you're bulking, probably to damage your nervous system enough in hopes that you buy another 4 servings. These stats are an important piece of information that the public should be aware of. There should be laws in place to, if not prevent, at least force companies to inform the public of the pregnancy risks that these products carry. And whoever is buying these products has a right to know what's in them. But when an article like this seeks not to present its evidence in a truthful manner, but to obscure it behind a series of number mats that say 1 trillion% of your daily limit, entirely focusing on inciting fear and outrage without actually explaining why those numbers are so high, doesn't accomplish that goal. It just makes people who've had these products scared. But who knows? Maybe I'm biased because I don't use protein supplements. I guess I'll just make a carrot cake instead. I wonder if there's any lead in carrots. Oh, holy shit. Thank you all for watching this video. I'm not an expert in this realm, so take my words with a pinch of salt, but this just seems so obviously misrepresentative to me. Do let me know if I missed anything in the comments, but you do not need to worry about overconsumption of protein powder as long as you don't have 3 servings a day, plus a bunch of leafy greens and a dozen root vegetables. You'll probably be fine. Take everything with a grain of salt, including my words. Okay, bye.